And we're here on the Pirate Broadcast. And, this episode is pretty amazing because we have someone that's brand new to live. We've got a wrap up of the end of the year activities, and we are really pushing into the next decade. So if you're willing to join us, you're willing to participate, all the gratitude in the world. I thank you so much for being here. If you're watching after the fact and you're watching the replay, just type in replay. I'd love to know where you're from and what you're doing, and just engage with us. I'm going to be on my phone making some comments here back and forth. We're going to have comments. And Tammy Collins is here. She's a rock star on LinkedIn. She's done some amazing things. And welcome to the show, Tammy. How are you today?
I'm great, Russ. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you, because I know that you have really, this last little bit on 2019, you have really dug in and really focused on accomplishing a major goal. Now, tell us what that goal was.
Well, it's a very interesting goal, really. Being a marketing professional, it's an interesting thing. I spend a lot of time in social media, but it's always for everyone else, right? And so when it comes to doing stuff for myself, you really are kind of tapped out and you don't want to do it anymore.
It's like social media is the last place I want to be for myself.
Exactly. But unfortunately, this is what everyone judges you by, right? So it's kind of like, well, oh, you don't have a big following, so how are you any good at marketing? Which ironically is the exact wrong things to be judging someone by, right? Because clearly, if I'm doing my job, I don't have time to be on social media, right? So that's kind of the funny thing. But all kidding aside, what I do, I normally am only getting referrals and recommendations. And a lot of it had to do with some of my own mindset issues and things of that nature, where I wasn't sort of being public about what I did. And I realized at one point, I sort of had a light bulb moment where I went, hey, wait a second, I think I am an expert at this. And I started to make my own internal mindset shift. And that's where I sort of started to say, okay, well, let me start to put myself out there a little bit more. And so like August 5th, I think it was, is sort of the day I sort of said, all right, well, let's go public.
Let's do this, right?
Yeah. So I created I grabbed my URL, which I had already had, but I sort of made a static page. It's really just my picture and it's a link to my calendar. And I also updated my LinkedIn profile, which I moved into more of like, yes, I do this, and here I am. And that's all fine and dandy. And I thought, oh, I'll have plenty of time to work on all the stuff behind the scenes. And that wasn't the case at all. I booked 58 calls in 45 days.
58 calls in 45 days.
Yeah.
So walk us through the process, because a lot of people, I just want to frame this correctly for the people that are watching. And for the people watching, Nick, Vicky, Sherry, Lewis, Arcot, Ronald, Earl Wilshire, good morning, sir. Julia, Elizabeth, Ted, Brenda, Nick, Elizabeth, all these people are in here, and I know several of them know you, and now that you've presented yourself to the LinkedIn community and actually got on board.
Yeah.
And for those that may watch this on other platforms like Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube or my website, if you have an opportunity to check this out, I really think it's important that we understand and walk you through this process, because LinkedIn is one of the most powerful platforms in the world to build relationships and actually book real business.
Yeah.
And I think that your story supports this. And I just want to remind people that if they put in the systems and they build a process and they do the work, because it's still work, right?
It's work. It's for sure it's work. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a really important point. And, even though I'm in the marketing space, I'm the same as any other entrepreneur, right? I have the same fears. I have the same doubts. I still sort of question everything. Even though I may know differently, I'm still an everyday person with the same issues and the same mindsets.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it takes work. You have two choices. You either put in time or money. There are no other choices,
Yeah.
right? And so obviously most entrepreneurs and most people don't want to spend the money to do what you need to do, right? And now we need to be more authentic. So you have to show up. You literally have to show up every day. And what does that mean? That means you have to put in the time. You have to engage.
Yeah.
And I'm going to repeat that. You have to engage. I'm going to repeat it one more time. You have to engage. Let's break that down. What does that mean?
What does it really mean? Yeah.
What does it really mean? It means that when you make a post, you don't just make the post and disappear, right? You can't post something. I like to talk about it like LinkedIn is a party, right? Because would you walk into a party and go, "Hey, I'm Tammy, I'm here," and then turn around and walk out the door and expect to make all these connections? No, that's not the reality of the situation, right? You would go into a party and you would introduce yourself and you would make a conscious effort to go talk to people, right? You would talk to those people. You wouldn't walk up to them and say, "Hi, I'm selling this," and then walk away from them. No, you would ask them about themselves. You would talk to them. You would spend all of your time getting to know them first. Then and only then, when a situation presents itself, would you sort of tiptoe in with, "Oh, I do this or I do that." And that principle, the same philosophies, the same mindset that you would apply to a real life party is how you function on LinkedIn. It's the same thing. It's just because it's in a digital space and you're physically removed from it, you still have the same social etiquettes. You still have to do the same exact things that you would do in a party. And that's the easiest way to think about it. You would go to a party, you would spend a lot of time at the party. You would talk to a lot of people. You would work the room. You would try to get to know as many people as you could.
Going to a conference is the same way. I mean,
exactly.
You want to make sure that you're very open and available to have a conversation. You want to be approachable. You want to be available to let people know what they can talk to you about, what questions they can ask you about.
Exactly. And so that also means that you're doing little things along the way. I like to talk about the algorithm in terms of a domino effect. You ever see somebody sets up a domino chain and they make these beautiful patterns and you trigger one domino and then the rest of the dominoes fall and make a pattern that, goes on and on and on and on. Well, that's
before you talk about that, I want to make sure that we capture what you actually accomplished in your process.
I kind of went right past that, didn't I?
You kind of went right past that, and I want to make sure that people understand.
So,
you set up your profile, you set up your page, you got some.
I get excited, I get passionate, right? So, on August 5th, I decided to be much more intentional and purposeful about my engagement and what I was doing on LinkedIn. And at that time, I believe I had 234 connections on LinkedIn, and my profile was more of an old style resume and listed everything I had ever done. So I changed it up a little bit, and I said, let's set a crazy goal of, let's see if I can get to 5,000 connections before the year's over.
Yeah.
And I actually accomplished it. I actually did it a few days early. I actually surpassed the original goal, and I have officially garnered over 5,000 new connections before the end of the year.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
And this plants the seed for everyone that has any doubts about what LinkedIn and the power of LinkedIn. And if you're here watching and you're struggling with this process, this is the show, this is the episode. These are the pirates that you want to pay attention to, because this has been done. It actually took place, and we want to make sure that you understand that it is possible for you as well.
Yeah.
And it takes work.
It takes work. I know.
we're not here telling you, hey, buy our book to get famous. It's like, we're not trying to teach you how to be famous. We're trying to teach you how to do the work.
Yeah, and I want to be really clear about something. There's a lot of people out there that tell you, oh, you only need to spend 15 minutes a day. No, no, that's an absolute lie. I mean, obviously you realize that if you want to engage at all, even just to read a dozen posts and respond to those takes a little more than 15 minutes. So let's be real about it instead of.
You could spend 15 minutes in a single post. It's not even very long.
Exactly. So stop kidding yourself. Let's be real about the time that you have to spend in there first. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
And I always talk to my clients. Of course, I'm advising them on plans and setting up their strategic goals. So I explain to them, you're going to want to commit 3 blocks in a day at least, right? Now you can commit 3 15 or 30-minute blocks throughout the day. That can be productive. But you can't just go on for 15 minutes in the morning and then walk away and go, why can't I get anybody to connect with me? It's obviously you're not going to be able to do that. So I think it's smart to plan blocks of time in the day. So I talk about it like I'll have my breakfast while I'm doing LinkedIn in the morning, and then I'll do it while I'm having lunch, and then I'll check in again quickly in the evening. And that's how I'm able to sort of stay connected and keep engaging without it taking up my entire day.
And then going back to the domino effect, you started to talk about that.
So the algorithms, every platform, this is another really, really important point. I think a lot of people want to do one thing and then repeat it constantly. So for example, of course, a lot of people are on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and they're trying to use the same piece of content and sort of just repeat that post on all platforms. That's never going to work because every audience is slightly different on each platform. They want different things. What works on LinkedIn doesn't necessarily work on Instagram or Facebook.
Right.
So they all have algorithms and they all have a similar sort of mindset or system about them. And obviously each platform wants you to stay in their world. Again, the LinkedIn party. LinkedIn wants you to stay in the LinkedIn party. They don't want you leaving and going over to Facebook. They don't want you leaving and going over to Instagram or whatever the case may be. So their algorithm is based on things that are going to help you stay and everyone else stay at their party. And it's like a domino effect. So no one knows the actual triggers down the line, but there's a whole laundry list of things that play into it. Of course, it's the timing of the likes, the amount of likes, the amount of comments, the amount of engagements, the speed of which they come. The bigger picture algorithm items are the conversations that take place in the comments. And that's why the engaging is so important. So a big tip is if you make a post and someone engages on your post, you need to be responding to that post. And in a perfect world, you need to be asking that person another question to make them come back and talk again.
Right.
And I also think another big,
just like a conversation.
Yeah. And I think another big thing is it's not just about your first connections. So one of the beauties of LinkedIn is that the organic reach is so large. It's easy to trigger. It's easy to gain exposure. That's why it's working so well. So when a first connection comments on your post, that means it goes out into their group of people, their network, so that now seconds can see your post. So when a second person now comments on your post, that's a big trigger for the algorithm, because the algorithm is saying, wow, not only are the people that are connected to this person interested, but other people are connected are interested as well. And so that domino effect starts to trigger. So to put that into a different perspective, when you post on LinkedIn and then you walk away and don't respond to engagements, the dominoes stop. One of the chips falls out of place and the whole pattern stops.
Yeah.
So that's the key, right? So the more you can make those dominoes trigger, the farther you can make that pattern happen, the better your results are going to be.
And that's the funny thing, because, that goes back to your point of every platform wants you to stay on that platform as long as possible.
Yeah.
So it's almost this, it's like that phone call where you're on the call, you're trying to wrap up, but you can't wrap up, and you have to keep calling, you have to keep talking. One more, and then one more thing. It's just like one more thing, It's just amazing to see how it goes. And I just want to highlight, Christina, Damon, Elizabeth, Kathy, Maureen, Ted. Thank you so much for being Jim Nixon, Trish. These are things that we're talking about on the Pirate broadcast, and bringing interesting people to talk about interesting things and what they're doing is the whole point of what we're doing here on the Pirate broadcast. And Tammy has made a conscious effort in the last quarter of 2019 to actually prove what she's doing in her business already for her other clients, and making progress and making a stamp in her LinkedIn profile, and making a stand, taking a stand in 2020 now. So she's at 5,000. She went from 240, you say?
234.
234 to 5,000 in 3 months?
150 days.
150 days, that's what it was. So that's an astounding, and hats off, applause. A round of silent applause, everyone. So the other thing I love about what you've accomplished is the fact that it sets, it shows evidence of some of the things that we need to do and can do. And a lot of people have already said this. There's Brenda Miller and Jeff Young and John Esperian and all these other people that have been telling us about this for years. And it's like, people don't believe it. They said, well, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. Well, do you have time to make 50 cold calls a day? Because essentially you can make more progress making connections on LinkedIn if you put the time in and you stop thinking about it as something else I have to do, and start thinking about it as a way to build relationships with people that matter to you, right?
What else are you going to do at the end of the day? What is it that's more important than connecting with someone that could turn into a client? So I mean, I know that's a general statement, but let's think pre-digital, right? I mean, how did you spend your daily activities, right? You would go out and meet people. Or if you're in a brick and mortar, let's use an old school example. If a customer walks into your store, you're going to have a conversation with them, whether it takes 5 minutes or 20 minutes to find out, are they a customer or not?
Yeah.
Enter the digital era, and we all went through that all out the window and said, oh, I'm just going to let, I don't have to do that work anymore, and I'm going to magically make sales. You still have to do that work. It never stopped. We just sort of decided that, because it's digital, we get to now leave out a step, and that's not the case.
Well, I think sometimes people that get into social media, especially, they kind of equate it to, well, Amazon just makes, I just order from Amazon, it just shows up. I don't have to talk to anybody. And it doesn't always work in the opposite direction, because, one, you're not Amazon, and two, you may not have products that automatically go out the door and just people order all the time. A soap vendor might have that, but I don't know who else. And a lot of us, that run traditional businesses like marketing, media, video, writing, web design, all of these digital platforms have a conversation included in the equation. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a different mindset. And I think we need to take a different mindset and start building a community around what we do.
Yeah.
And then find people that need or potentially could use or refer us to people that need our services, and build relationships with them. It's that simple.
Yeah, it really is.
But it's not easy.
No.
But it's not easy. We're all busy. We might not be online at the same time. So the beauty of social media is that you can actually leave a comment, even though you may not trigger the algorithm because you're starting that conversation. However, I can come back, like yesterday, I can come back late in the afternoon or in the evening and make comments to people that have left comments or tagged me or mention me in a post or something like that, and I can come back and respond to that.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. I think it's really powerful. So Tammy,
Yeah.
2020 right around the corner, like hours away. What are you going to do? What are your plans to exceed and excel on LinkedIn and social platforms in 2020? What strategy is next?
What strategy is next? Well, I have a lot of things going on in the works in the backdrop. I have developed my own system, and it is how I help my clients. It's based on my life experiences and everything that I've learned. I've had multiple businesses. I've done many different things. I've worked in so many different industries. I went back to college late in life and studied under a master digital selling ad guru and got all certificates and a stack of awards for all kinds of things. And through all of that process, again, I'm just a person. I'm just an entrepreneur, just like anybody else. I struggled. I made mistakes. I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing, for goodness sakes, and it taught me a lot of things. And I put that into a system, and it's currently with the attorney getting trademarked and all that good stuff. But I have a 6-step process that I take people through. And it came about because people started coming to me and saying, "Oh, I heard you're really good at marketing. Can you help me? Look at my stuff. Will you fix this?" And I would look at their stuff and I would sort of go, "Well, you've got a lot bigger problems." I'm like, "If you want me to run ads for you, I could certainly do that, but I feel like I would just be taking your money because you aren't ready for the ads to begin with.
Yeah.
You've got this problem. You need to fix that. And why are you doing this? What are you even saying? Who are you even talking to?" And so I realized that usually they're coming to me because they skip steps C, D, E, F, H, J, and they're trying to go right to, R. And it's like,
I
well,
want to go to the cash drawer.
yeah, exactly. So I sort of started being I'm a very open and honest person. So I would just sort of say flat out, like, if I run this ad, I'm just taking your money. If that's what you would like to do, okay. But ethically, I don't really feel like I can do that. So
Right.
if you want me to fix it for you, let's go back to the beginning and go through the process. And that's how it came about. And I started having a lot of success with it. And I sort of said, I think I need to be a lot more public about this.
Yeah.
And that's part of that whole process and how that's been coming about.
Well, and it's funny because I had in Vicki O'Neill, we've talked about this in the fact that we have I'm the same way. My background is incredibly diverse. So you bring all that in, that information and that experience along with you.
Yeah.
And I've always been primarily on the operational side of business. And, I've been an entrepreneur for years and going back and forth. And I have a tendency to see what others are doing. And it's like the plumber's sink always leaks.
Right.
So it's, and yesterday we were talking about Joshua and coaching, and the same thing. It's like we all need a coach because there are times where we don't see ourselves in the proper perspective, and I think that's really important because even if you think you have it all together, you don't have it all together because you're probably you're in the cone of knowledge and you're thinking that you have everything together, and it's not the case. So it's always important to step outside. Take a new look and a fresh look, and 2020 is a great opportunity to do that. And then look at these things and maybe get with somebody like Tammy and have her evaluate what you're doing all along the way, and then pick the wins that you can take a win with. Like just like you mentioned, who are you selling to?
Right.
Why are you selling to them? What are you selling to them? What is it that you're offering? What value are you bringing to the table? What's the message? Is it clear? I like stories and storytelling and having the journey, the idea and the concept of a journey in a relationship. And, all of my clients in revenue right now are relationship based. I don't spend ad money. I don't have, well, I do spend ad money because I'm always testing things and I want to see what works and what doesn't. so this whole process is, something that you're doing all the time. So now you're formatting it and you're formulating a course or a system that you can use over and over again. And that's a beautiful thing. I love that. Yeah. I'm a systems person. I like systems. So
yeah, I am too. I'm a very strange breed. I'm both a left and a right brain person.
Yeah.
So as much as I am super creative and highly intuitive, I also like the facts and the systems as well. But I want to just touch on you're being able to analyze ourselves. That's a huge issue. I always refer to it as the mechanic's wife's car is never fixed, right?
Yeah.
It's never ever fixed. And I always talk about this a lot with my clients. And I use this sort of, if you envision yourself as a recipe and you're in a jar, right? You're inside the jar. You don't know or can't understand or don't know what people see that label from the outside. You have no idea. Yeah. And there's no way you can. And this even applies to myself. There's no way I can know how someone else perceives it. Yeah. So you have to pull in that coach. You have to pull in that other person that has the ability to help you step outside and see that. If you don't, you will stay stuck inside your own jar, in your recipe, mixing the ingredients forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what it comes down to.
That is what it comes down to. So how soon will you have this whole process completed where you can bring it to the world?
I use the process now with my current clients, and that's what I take them through. And it's called the Life System, which is the legacy infrastructure for entrepreneurs. And it's the whole concept, and everything that I'm about is building a brand honeycomb infrastructure, right? So that your marketing can then thrive. That's sort of what I do. That's a real nutshell of it. But if you think about a honeycomb, right, there's all the different honeycombs. And if you take the center and make that yourself or your business, you're in the jar, each honeycomb that goes around that, all of that is connected. One of them is branding, one of them is, each piece you have. And if one piece is weak, the honeycomb structure isn't strong enough to survive, let alone thrive.
Well, and that goes back to your point of before you start advertising and spending ad dollars and anything like that, there has to be systems in place to support that, right? And you have to develop over time, because it takes adjustments, it takes tweaks, and there's a lot of things. If you look at business and any company that I've ever been involved with, there's processes. These companies may be big and they may be huge, and still they're improving their processes all the time. They're improving their systems all the time. And just like the entrepreneur or the freelancer or the solopreneur, we all need to do more reflection on what we're doing, why we're doing it, who we're doing it for, who we help, how we help, and where we're going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do that. I actually do that weekly, heavily monthly, and even more heavily quarterly, but I'm constantly analyzing. I'm highly proficient. I don't like to waste time. If something isn't effective or efficient, it goes out quick. Get rid of it. Have to. Otherwise you're kind of caught in a tailspin.
Well, we all have the same amount of time. So, we have to optimize every time we can. Yeah. So Vicki O'Neill, add new ingredients if you want a new recipe.
Yeah, nice.
Nice. I love that, Vicki. Yeah. I love that, Vicki. And I just said, Happy New Year. Jerry, Happy New Year's, troops. Happy New Year's. Thank you for serving. Vicki also said, professional experience sounds more like mine, including going to back to school to get your degree. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I love that. Brenda, thanks for the shout out. Love you, Brenda. You're awesome. Awesome growth, Tammy. So 2020, the roadmap in 2020, what things do you see in the marketing world that a small business owner needs to pay attention to besides video?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Well, the thing with video, I agree with video. However, I think we might have hit a fatigue point. Because just like anything else, somebody takes a piece of advice and runs with it and doesn't know what they're doing. And then we have fatigue, right? So you have people, jogging down the street and they're filming themselves and we're watching videos and it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. So I agree with video. However, you do not need to have professionally produced, but there's a fine line there between, sitting in your car and, we have to have some common sense. And I think that the internet has made us smart and stupid at the same time. It's something else I always talk about, right? Because especially for the entrepreneur, because we're smart, we're wicked smart people, right? We have the gumption and the power and the tenacity and things that we need to do. So we know like, oh, well, I can go find some information out. Well, unfortunately, you're only getting a piece of the puzzle and you're missing the broad nature of something. And so you're acting without all of the information, and that's that smart stupid, we're willing to just run with something even though we don't have all of the information that we need to make the right choices. And that's the video is the perfect example of that. Yeah. Oh, we have to go do video, so you run out and start doing these bizarre videos.
Well, look at TikTok. I mean, TikTok's a perfect example.
I'm on TikTok.
Yeah.
But
however, I think it's important for us to frame something that is taking place, and never before in the history of mankind have we had the opportunity to produce content in the volumes that we're producing content right now. And obviously, in that evolution of change and adoption and creation, we're going to make some bad mistakes and bad choices. It's like, I thank you so much that video wasn't available when I was in my 20s.
Totally agree with that one.
Yeah. So here's the thing, though, and that's the whole premise of the pirate broadcast is, it doesn't take the FCC to allow us to publish or produce. It doesn't take, a producer saying, okay, we're going to create a show for you. It doesn't take engineers and cameraman and all of these people in this infrastructure to build an output. And you're right. To that point, there is going to be people that are not going to make optimum video. Just like blog posting, not everyone was born to be a writer. Some faces were meant for radio. That's the whole point. Podcasting is. There's a lot of. I heard a phrase the other day that Anchor, you can start a podcast very easily, and there's like a pod flash epidemic because people start it, they launch an episode, and all of a sudden there's an episode out there, and they don't even know that it's an episode.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, yes, there's a lot more education and understanding that needs to take place, and one of the things that I like to share and teach is. And until you start putting something out there, you don't have any feedback to get you into that cycle of improvement.
Yeah.
So you need to put it out there and get a reaction and a response and evaluate what it is in order to accomplish that goal. And, video doesn't have to be for everyone. Podcasting doesn't have to be for everyone. Blogging doesn't have to be, being online may not be for everyone. However, it is a powerful tool that we cannot avoid going forward. Right. And the first thing you do is when you go online and you're thinking about doing something with someone, you Google them, right?
Yeah.
And you look them up, and if there's no social presence or there's no social proof, what's the feeling you have?
Right.
It's less than overwhelming.
Yeah.
And that's why having your LinkedIn profile up there is so powerful, because if you search your name and your LinkedIn profile comes out and people can find you, then it's that much more impact.
Well, a couple things there. First of all, yes, LinkedIn's really powerful. One of the main reasons it's additionally powerful, besides the obvious things, is that when people are Googling, LinkedIn results come up on the SERP pages. So the search engine result pages, LinkedIn stuff appears there. So if you have a LinkedIn page and you've been a little active, if you've written an article, that comes up in right in the top.
Yeah.
This is one of the easiest ways to gain rank on a Google page for sure. So that's definitely a good thing. Definitely a good thing for business owners. But going back to the whole, what you had asked, what, 2020, what can small businesses, entrepreneurs do to plan going forward? I wanted to go back to that. And before video, before podcasts, before blogs, before social media, before all of that stuff, I am always going to be a proponent of brand, because this is where 95% of everyone is making all of the mistakes. If your brand is set up properly and you are fully engaged with that, all the rest of the stuff is a piece of cake. And the reason that people cannot have success, and I see this time and time and time again, when they come to me, their problems, their struggles are all back in their brand. They're a complete train wreck. And this is because they skip steps along the way.
Yeah.
And most entrepreneurs, they go to Fiverr and hire somebody to do a logo. That is not how you create your brand.
No.
That is the absolute worst thing you could do.
Yeah, and I'm the first one to admit I'm off brand. You go to my website and it's like, what does he do? I had no idea. And there's two parts to that. One,
you're in your jar.
I'm in my jar.
You're in your jar.
Number two is that committing to one thing has always been a challenge to me, because I love doing other things. It's like, don't put me in a corner. don't put me in a box.
You want to know what's really funny? This is how I discovered my superpower, right? So part of what I do is me sort of realizing that I've become a powerhouse. And that came about because I realized how desperately I needed a superhero. And I realized that I needed to be that superhero for other people. And what does that all mean? That means that I started multiple businesses, right? Because I am like a genius when it comes to, there's an idea, and then making that idea like a visible brand, and then implementing that into something that has processes that can be profitable. That's my
action taker.
Yeah, that's my genius zone. So if I was starting all these businesses, and after I got it all done, I was like, okay, I'm bored now.
So you're not the CEO that thinks about the next thing and operates in the company. You're the one that likes to create the company and move on.
I'm the magician that makes it all happen. And right, but so that's a very weird thing. I mean, think about that. I started a magazine. I started brand, like product lines. I did all of these great things. And I kept going, what's wrong with me? Why, like, that's fantastic. Why am I like bored with it now? It took me a while to really figure out what it was, where I'm such a creative, and I was so frustrated for years. I couldn't figure out, like, this is all great. Why, what is wrong? What's happening? And, doing it time and time and time again. And there was suddenly this light bulb moment. I mean, I spent years as an interior designer, and I have a dozen awards as doing that role. I wasn't completely fulfilled, but I had the opportunity to be given the opportunity to be a marketing director. And when I stepped into that role and I started looking at that, and I realized in that role, that person, that company had major brand issues. And that's where my system came about, right? Because all those years of me doing businesses and starting all these things, now I'm in a situation where I'm not in the jar. I'm like, oh, and that's where it all started to click. And
so you're the label maker.
I took a big risk. I went to that person and I said, you hired me to do this. This is what I would do. And I completely changed the look and the face of that brand. And they went on to open an additional company and blah, 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 and all this extra stuff. And that's when I realized what my strengths were. And I went back to school. I studied marketing and advertising. I studied global marketing. And, I really took what I realized was my superpower and amplified it. I went and got digital certificates to back it up. I have like 8 of those. And then I did all these extra things to just sort of boost that up. But
was that to validate the fact that you could do it? You could do what you're already doing?
Yeah, because I suffer from imposter syndrome, just like mostly everyone.
Just like all of us.
And
Anybody,
right, I have such an intense passion for education, and so for me, that's the course you take. Like, you need those extra things. So I went and did that, and I started implementing, my system without even realizing it. I'd have people come to me. I had the opportunity to work for Rutgers and do some things there, and I suddenly started to realize, wait a second, I have a unique process here. I mean, even how I go about helping a brand uncover themselves. The big thing that I always talk about with that is you're not saying what your brand is. Your brand is revealed.
yeah,
And this is a huge disconnect. So I use a lot of psychological tools and things to sort of help that brand surface and help it have its own life, which makes a company, a business, an entrepreneur so much more connected to who and what they are. It's amazing. Every time I go through that experience, it usually ends in tears of joy, but it's so powerful. I mean, I've had CEOs come to me and say that's the most amazing thing that I've ever experienced in my company, because it helps culture. It's just so powerful at the end. And then you suddenly realize, well, no wonder I couldn't have any success. I didn't know what the heck I was doing.
well, it's think of the brand Coca-Cola. That logo has not changed ever, and it's planted in our brains, along with billions of dollars of advertising. However, no one understands what that brand stands for. Just like Red Bull, Red Bull has a brand, it has an image, it has everything that goes along with it. And I think as an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, it goes back to your recipe jar analogy. It's like, okay, we're still making our recipe here. We're still kind of formulating what the best recipe is, and when we're in the mix, it's difficult to see. So we need a label maker to help us along that process, right? So, Tammy, this has been phenomenal, and I truly appreciate and applaud you for the time and effort that you put into this, and thank you for joining on your first LinkedIn Live episode here. I'm humbled by the opportunity, and I know that we're going to become much more connected in 2020, and travel this journey together, and introduce other people to the Pirate broadcast as well. So I anticipate that we'll cross paths, as it were, in 2020 many times. But
well, I thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun, and I'm happy to be a pirate. I think we need to give out pirate nicknames.
It's pretty painless, right? It was pain-free. It was easy, right?
It was easy, yeah. Till I watch it back.
Yeah. Oh, well, you watch it back, and there's always, I should have said, I could have said, might have said, I would love to. However, there's another opportunity in the future. We can come back and we check in on your progress after you get all your systems in place. Then we'll announce your systems.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll invite you back in there. So stay tuned for that. So
okay, thank you everyone for watching. Happy New Year. Sit down and have a plan. Gotta have a plan.
Get dialed in. And tomorrow we're going to have Steve Sullivan from UMAP. I think he's going to interrogate me a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. Angie, great. I love the fact that Vicki O'Neill, there's a lot of things. Wendy, thank you so much for being here. All of the individuals that participate and contribute. Frank, thank you so much. All the gratitude in the world in 2019. This last decade has been life-changing for me. And, I've, traveled a long distance, and maybe that's another story for another day. However, Tammy, thank you. And all of the people that have joined us, thank you so much. And as you know, kindness is cool, smiles are free, and you enjoy the day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.